reporting on John Kelly's tenure.
So just to explain what this is, so with the paperback of my book coming out, I did something unusual. I've written a 12,000-word biography of Kelly, and it basically tells the story of a man who came in to be Donald Trump's chief of staff in the middle of 2017. And Kelly thought that Trump's problems were the fact that he didn't have a great process around him. He needed for the staff to be able to get him the right information so he could make the right decisions, and that he could bring that process to the table. But what Kelly comes in within hours, if not days, he realizes that the problem is not just that there's not process, but the problem is Trump, and that Trump was far more limited. He was dumber than Kelly thought he was. He was more immoral than Kelly thought he was. I later learned that Kelly told someone that he said, "I didn't know they made people like that." So he's confronting Trump, and he's realizing, oh, man, if I thought it was a problem before, and Kelly did think it was a problem before, this is an even bigger problem. And Kelly thought it was his job to basically stand between Trump and the abyss and to try and keep Trump on the tracks. And while he's realizing this, the biggest problem that Kelly can sense is North Korea. A week after Kelly comes in is when Trump says fire and fury. Trump's public rhetoric is out of control. And you have to remember, who is John Kelly? He's a 4-star Marine general who studied war. He fought on the battlefield in Iraq. He knows, and from history, that war can be set off very easily through mixed signals and everything. And here you have Trump basically publicly goading Kim into war. And what Kelly is afraid is that Kim, in hopes of staying in power, does something like launch a missile that the United States has to shoot down and has to respond to. And all of a sudden, we're spiraling out of control to war because of the missed signals between the two of them. And Trump would not go along when Kelly said, look, there are hundreds of thousands of people that could die. And Trump didn't understand that. When Kelly would say this could destroy the economy, something that he thought would appeal to Trump's love of his own good economy, Trump didn't appreciate that. It was only when Kelly, in these one-on-ones with Trump, said, look, why don't you become his friend? Why don't you? No one in American history has done that. You say all this stuff about what a great deal maker you are. Why don't you try and do that? And Kelly knew that that wouldn't lead to a denuclearized North Korea, but he knew that it would ratchet back the public and private rhetoric coming out of Trump's mouth that could easily spin out of control.
One of the pivot points in your new reporting is this indifference when he's briefing him on the consequence. He's explaining how this escalates. And it's the indifference to death that I've never seen so starkly. I mean, we knew that Trump had indifference to suffering and the spiked wall he wanted at the southern border and the nukes he wanted shot into Mexico. But the indifference in your telling of Kelly's efforts to educate him on the horrors and the heinous nature of war feels like an inflection point for Kelly.
Look, no person understood the horrors of war, maybe in the senior ranks of the U.S. military, than John Kelly, the highest-ranking American military officer to lose a child in the post-9/11 wars. And he's trying to explain to Trump what this could look like, what a DMZ with North and South Korea firing on each other could look like, how this could all spin into ways that could lead to missiles flying all over the place. And it didn't work to connect to Trump. He couldn't connect to Trump that way. It was only through Kelly saying to Trump, you can be the deal maker. Go all the way back to Eisenhower. No one has done this. You can do this. And Trump goes along with it. It had been one of these mysteries of the Trump administration. Mm-hmm. Why was there such an about face between the rhetoric and the love letters? And this is part of it. Look, there's probably parts of this story that we don't know, other parts of how this idea came to pass. But it's in these one-on-one conversations. And John Kelly spent hours and hours with Donald Trump in 2017 and 2018 trying to deal with this issue because Kelly thought it was the biggest problem that may come to bear.
And in your reporting, these aren't pleasant chats. I mean, Trump is abusive. He snaps at Kelly, and Kelly says, "You stop or I'm out of here." And you report out that Trump was so angry that Kelly wasn't, quote, more like the Germans. Explain.
And this is something that's come up in other reporting before, but Trump did not understand that the generals were not going to be loyal to him. If anything, and this is, I think, one of the reasons that we've never really heard publicly from John Kelly. John Kelly takes very seriously the divide between the military and the civilian. And he took an oath to the Constitution, and he was going to be loyal to the Constitution. Trump had no comprehension of this. He thought that the generals should just be loyal to him. He brings up this thing. He says, "Why aren't you loyal like the German generals?" And Kelly, knowing German history, says, "You talking the First World War or Second World War?" And it was clear to Kelly that Trump was talking about the Second World War. See, and to Kelly, Trump's talking about Nazi Germany and citing the generals. And Kelly says, well, the generals tried to kill Hitler. And Kelly has the facts, and Trump doesn't have any way to respond to it. But that's just one example of how Kelly found Trump so limited. Kelly was surprised by how little Trump knew and how much Trump talked about things like he knew what he was doing. And I think that from Kelly's mindset, he was going to take as much pain as possible. He was going to endure working for Donald Trump as long as he could, and as long as Donald Trump would keep him there. And that was 18 months. And he did that all the way through the end of 2018. And an important part of the story is, look, the first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency did not go well. There are a lot of things that went wrong there. But there is a different tenor between 17 and 18 and 19 and 20. He's impeached in 19, and then we all remember what happens in 2020 into 2021. And that's a different type of person, an unbound Trump. Let Trump be Trump. Kelly walks out the door. He says to Trump, don't pick a bootlicker. Pick someone that's going to keep you in line. And in came the next chief of staff who wanted to let Trump be Trump.
Mick Bootlicker Mulvaney. Toward the end, when Kelly is nearing his breaking point, they're on a plane to Paris, France, and Trump goes back on Hitler and says Hitler did some good things. What was the fixation with Hitler?
I'm not sure. I think there may have been something about Trump's father and Trump's father's heritage. This is a part, where I should have had Maggie next to me who could help me explain this. But I don't know a lot about Trump's history in terms of that. But it was something I think that the people around Trump thought was tied to his father, and his father being, there's some sort of thing there in glorification of Germany in his view. And we know from other reporting that Trump had glorified Northern Europe. He wanted there to be more people that came into the United States from Northern Europe and not other parts of the world.
Jeremy Bash, I want your thoughts on all of it, but this thing on Germany isn't Angela Merkel's Germany. It isn't Germany of the First World War. It is specifically Hitler. Here it is. On the flight to France on Air Force One, Trump showed his lack of basic knowledge about world history. Who were the good guys in World War I, the president asked Kelly. By definition, anyone we were with were the good guys, Kelly said. So anytime you ever have a question about who the good guys are, if we're in the war, we're with the good guys. Well, Trump responded, Hitler did a lot of good things. Trump attempted to convince Kelly of his reading of history. Germany, he told Kelly, was only able to gain economic dominance in Europe because of Hitler. These meetings with neo-Nazi adjacent folks are not one-offs. This is a worldview that Donald Trump held and holds, Jeremy.
Absolutely. And if you look at some of the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th, they wore T-shirts that said Camp Auschwitz and 6 million wasn't enough. And so this fetishization of Nazi Germany, playing footsie with neo-Nazis, obviously praising Hitler. I mean, this is outrageous. It's not only anti-Semitic, it's anti-American, and it's ignorant of history, and it's fundamentally dangerous. And I think Mike's reporting about John Kelly, who I had the pleasure of working with in the Pentagon, Admiral Jim Stavridis, also worked closely with. In fact, they held two of the same jobs, the senior military assistant to the SecDef Chef and U.S. Commander of U.S. Southern Command. Those of us who work with John Kelly know he's highly credible, highly serious, and thank God he was there. I said thank God that he was there many times in the Pentagon. Thank God he was there in the Oval Office, because as this new reporting shows, Trump wanted to be more authoritarian than the ultimate authoritarian in Kim